She arrived as a stranded traveler, but every move he made was part of her secret test. The colony was quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that stretched across the empty fields and steel buildings like a soft blanket. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and violet. The wind whispered through the sparse trees, and the hum of distant machines was the only sound that broke the calm. Evan stood near the edge of the landing pad, wiping grease from his hands, his eyes scanning the horizon out of habit rather than necessity. Life in the outer colonies was often uneventful, predictable, and safe, or at least as safe as anyone could expect on a planet so far from the central systems. Then the blip appeared on the colony's sensors. A faint, irregular signal, almost like a plea rather than a warning. At first, it seemed like a glitch, some temporary interference in the automated systems. But as Evan squinted at the screen, he noticed the faint outline of a ship. It was small, unlike anything the colony usually encountered, and it was drifting without power, tumbling gently toward the planet's surface. The moment the alert was sent, a ripple of curiosity and caution spread among the colony staff. A vessel arriving without communication was never a good sign. The colony's council debated quickly, their voices brisk over the comms, and it was Evan, young but trusted, who was assigned to investigate. He didn't argue. The thought of seeing a new ship, the possibility of meeting someone from beyond their isolated planet, sparked a quiet excitement in him. By the time he reached the landing pad, the ship had come to a slow, awkward stop. Its hull was sleek and smooth, reflecting the dying light like liquid metal. There were no markings, no insignia, nothing to indicate its origin. Evan felt a strange mix of awe and unease. He had repaired ships before, but none like this. He approached cautiously, his hands brushing the worn tool belt at his side. A door hissed open before he could even knock, and a figure stepped out. She was tall, with a posture that suggested authority and confidence, yet there was a subtle fragility in her movements, as if she were testing the strength of the ground beneath her. Her hair was a silvery white, catching the last light, and her eyes, sharp, intelligent, and curious, studied Evan like he was part of an experiment. She gave a small, polite nod. "I am stranded," she said, her voice calm but measured. There was a rhythm to her words, a careful choice in every syllable. "I require assistance." Evan blinked. He had expected fear, panic, confusion, but not this composed statement delivered like a report. I can help," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "I'm Evan. I work with the colony's engineering team. If you follow me, we can assess your systems." She nodded again, almost imperceptibly, and fell into step beside him. As they walked back toward the workshop, Evan stole glances at her. Every movement seemed deliberate, every pause calculated. She looked around at the colony with interest, but there was no obvious fear or desperation. Instead, it was as if she were quietly taking inventory, judging the colony, judging him. Evan felt a shiver of unease. He had assisted travelers before, but there was something different about her. The workshop smelled of oil and machinery, a comforting scent that Evan had always associated with problem-solving. He led her to an empty bay, gesturing for her to wait while he checked the data. Her eyes followed him, sharp and patient, watching as he interfaced with her ship's diagnostic system. Evan had worked on countless systems, but this one was unlike any he had encountered. Its technology was advanced, elegant, and unfamiliar, yet it responded to his touch, almost as if it recognized human ingenuity. "You understand systems quickly," she observed, her voice neutral but carrying an undertone of interest. Evan shrugged modestly, feeling the warmth of pride in her acknowledgement. "I've had practice. The colony keeps me busy." For the next few hours, Evan worked tirelessly, guided by intuition as much as experience. He traced circuits, recalibrated sensors, and bypassed damaged components. All the while, she watched silently, occasionally leaning forward to point out something he might have missed, but never touching a single tool herself. He began to sense a pattern. She wasn't just stranded. She was evaluating him. Every decision, every careful adjustment seemed to matter to her more than the ship itself. When Evan finally stepped back, wiping sweat from his brow, he realized the ship's engines hummed again, a gentle vibration of life returning to the dormant vessel. The woman's expression remained composed, but there was a faint hint of approval in her gaze. "You have completed the first stage," she said softly, almost to herself. "Adequate," Evan frowned. "Stage," she shook her head lightly. Forget I said anything, you've done well, that is all that matters. Despite her words, Evan couldn't shake the feeling that he had just crossed a subtle threshold, a line he didn't know existed. She was studying him, testing him, and he was a participant in something far larger than the repair itself. The evening wore on, and the sky darkened into a velvet canvas dotted with stars. The colony's lights glimmered against the shadowed fields, tiny points of human achievement on an isolated world. The woman finally stood, straightening her posture. I must remain with the colony for now, she said. There are considerations, your people are interesting, resourceful, you have potential. Evan's curiosity flared, but he held back a question, sensing it was not yet the right time. Potential for. She only smiled faintly, a gesture that held more secrets than it revealed. For many things, you will understand in time. Over the following days, Evan continued to assist her, guiding her through repairs and minor adjustments, teaching her to adapt to the colony's systems. She learned quickly, absorbing information with uncanny speed, but never gave away her own knowledge. It was as if every interaction was measured, every word weighed. Evan felt increasingly like a student and a subject at the same time, and though the notion unsettled him, he could not deny the thrill it brought. There was something extraordinary about her presence, something that made the mundane tasks of the colony suddenly feel like a gateway to a greater world. He began to notice little patterns. How she watched him hesitate before making a choice, how she tilted her head when he solved a problem in an unexpected way, how she seemed almost amused at his moments of hesitation and triumph. Each observation, each interaction, deepened Evan's understanding that her visit was more than coincidence. There was intent behind every motion, every question, every quiet assessment. One night, Evan found himself alone on the landing pad, staring at the stars. The colony was quiet, save for the low hum of the machinery that kept life running. The woman had returned to her quarters, leaving him to his thoughts. He could not shake the feeling that humanity itself had become part of an experiment he didn't fully understand. And yet within that feeling there was excitement, a sense of possibility. For all the mystery surrounding her, she had ignited something in him, something that reached beyond the mechanics and routines of the colony. A spark of challenge, a test of ingenuity, a chance to show that humanity could rise to meet the unknown. Evan did not yet know the full nature of her intentions, but he was ready to meet whatever trials might come. The next morning, she emerged from her quarters, walking toward him with the same measured grace that had captured his attention days before. "There is work to be done," she said simply, "and you will lead it." Evan felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He nodded, accepting the challenge without fully understanding it. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it with the tools, the knowledge, and the courage he had developed among the colony. And he realized that might be exactly what she was looking for. As they walked toward the workshop together, the woman glanced at him briefly. "Remember," she said, her voice calm but firm, "every choice you make matters, not just for you but for what comes after." Evan met her gaze, a mixture of determination and curiosity in his own eyes. He did not know the full purpose of her tests, nor did he know the final outcome, but he felt a strange certainty in the moment. Humanity had always been underestimated, always been the quiet, clever survivor in a galaxy full of stronger, faster, more advanced species. And now, with this mysterious traveler observing him, Evan understood that he was about to prove that truth once again, first to her, and then to the universe. The ship hummed faintly in the background, a subtle promise of journeys yet to come. The stars above seemed a little closer, a little more reachable. And Evan, for the first time in a long while, felt that the quiet life of the colony was only the beginning. The real test, the one that would challenge every skill, every instinct, and every human trait he possessed, was about to begin. The colony awoke to a soft golden light that spilled across the metal roofs and dusty pathways. Birds, or their closest equivalent on this planet, sang faintly in the distance, and the hum of machinery provided a constant backdrop to the early morning bustle. Evan walked through the narrow streets, his steps light but purposeful. Today, as every day now, his mind was not entirely his own. The mysterious traveler's presence lingered like a shadow behind every decision, a quiet pressure that made him think more carefully, move more deliberately. When he reached the workshop, she was already there, standing among the tools and devices as if she belonged. Her hair caught the sunlight streaming through the open doorway, and her eyes, as always, were sharp and attentive. She gave him a small nod, a silent greeting that carried with it the weight of observation. "Good morning," Evan said, his voice carrying both respect and a touch of nervousness. "I thought I'd start with the energy converters today. Some readings were off last night." She tilted her head slightly, her gaze appraising. "Very well, lead the way," she said. Her words were simple, but the tone held authority. Evan felt the familiar mix of challenge and curiosity stir inside him. As he worked, the traveler moved quietly around the workshop, watching every movement. She did not touch anything unless she needed to point out a subtle detail or ask a question. Her presence was calm, almost serene, but Evan felt an undercurrent of assessment, a sense that she was measuring his resourcefulness, patience, and decision-making. Every adjustment he made, every calculation he performed, was a note in some larger evaluation he could not yet comprehend. By mid-morning, a small problem arose with one of the energy converters. A component was misaligned, and the readings flickered unpredictably. Evan frowned, his hands steady as he considered the options. He could try a quick fix, relying on improvisation, or he could take a more cautious approach, disassembling the unit fully to ensure precision. He glanced at her briefly. She was watching, silent, but the faint arch of her brow suggested she was interested in his choice. Evan decided on the careful approach. He dismantled the unit, examined each part meticulously, and reassembled it with methodical precision. The readings stabilized, and the converter hummed steadily, delivering the energy flow the colony needed. The traveler's eyes lingered on him for a moment longer than before, and then she nodded. "Adequate," she said softly, almost to herself. Evan felt a shiver of recognition. This was more than simple observation. She was testing him, shaping his understanding of responsibility and resourcefulness. The day continued in a similar rhythm. Evan guided the traveler through repairs, minor adjustments, and system optimizations. She absorbed information rapidly, asking questions that challenged his assumptions, but she always deferred to his judgment. It was clear that she wanted to see not only his skill but his thought process, how he approached problems, how he weighed risks, how he cared for the outcomes of his actions. By the afternoon, a new challenge presented itself. A supply drone, tasked with delivering essentials to the colony's outer storage units, had malfunctioned. Its navigation system was offline, and its power reserves were dangerously low. Evan immediately saw the risk. If the drone failed, critical supplies would be delayed, and the colony would face shortages in the coming days. The traveler stood nearby, her arms crossed, watching him plan his approach. "You may choose your method carefully," she said. "Every choice has consequences." Evan considered his options. The drone could be repaired on-site, but the remote location made access difficult. He could attempt to guide it manually, risking both the drone and the terrain, or he could devise a temporary fix to bring it back safely. He decided on a combination. Using his knowledge of engineering and a bit of improvisation, he created a temporary navigation override, guiding the drone back to the workshop with minimal risk. The drone's sensors flickered back to life as it landed, and Evan let out a quiet sigh of relief. The traveler's gaze followed every movement, noting the ingenuity and caution he balanced. She did not speak immediately, letting the moment pass. Finally, she said, "Resourceful, you adapt quickly even under pressure." Evan felt a quiet satisfaction, but it was tempered by curiosity. "Why are you watching me so closely?" he asked, unable to resist. She paused, her eyes meeting his. "I am learning about your people," she said simply. "Your decisions, your behavior, your ability to handle challenges, these reveal more than you know. It is not just skill I observe, but character. Potential is measured not in technology, but in choices." The words struck Evan with the weight of significance. He realized that her visit was far more than a simple request for help. This was a test, a careful, calculated evaluation of humanity itself, and he, in his small role, was a participant. The thought both unsettled and thrilled him. Humanity had long been underestimated in the galaxy. If she judged them by this measure, what she saw could change everything. As evening approached, Evan and the traveler ventured outside the workshop to inspect the colony's energy grid. The sun was low, casting long shadows across the landscape. The traveler moved with ease, her eyes scanning the horizon, taking in the patterns of human construction and resource management. "You manage your colony efficiently," she said. Yet there is room for improvement. Evan smiled faintly. There always is. We're humans, we adapt, we learn, we improve. It's what we do. Her eyes flicked to him, sharp and calculating. Yes, that is what I hope to see. The ability to adapt is rare, even among advanced civilizations. It is a quality I seek. Evan felt a surge of pride, tempered by the awareness that he was still under scrutiny. She was measuring, evaluating, preparing for something larger than either of them. Night fell, and the colony lights twinkled like stars on the ground. Evan sat near the landing pad, tinkering with a small device he had repaired earlier. The traveler stood nearby, silent, observing the colony and its routines. "You think humans are fragile," she said finally, breaking the quiet. "You underestimate yourselves, and others do as well. But I see strength in subtle ways, in ingenuity, in persistence, in the courage to act when decisions matter most." Evan looked up at her, intrigued. "And what do you want from us?" he asked cautiously. She smiled faintly, a gesture that was more thoughtful than warm. "I want to understand, to know whether your species can rise to challenges beyond your current world, whether you are ready for the greater galaxy." Evan considered her words. He had always believed that humans could achieve remarkable things, even when others doubted them. He had seen it in the colony, in the way his neighbors adapted to shortages, repaired broken systems, and faced environmental hazards with quiet determination. Now he understood that this traveler had come not only to test him, but to evaluate humanity itself. Over the next few days, the traveler continued to introduce challenges, subtle and indirect. Small malfunctions, unexpected system recalibrations, and moral dilemmas all became part of her assessment. Evan faced each with careful thought, weighing the consequences for both the colony and those around him. He improvised solutions, collaborated with other colonists, and sometimes took risks that others would have avoided. All the while, the traveler observed, taking mental notes, her expression unreadable but keenly focused. One evening, a minor crisis arose in the communications array. A relay station had failed, cutting off the outer sectors from contact with the central hub. The colony depended on these links for updates, supply schedules, and emergency protocols. Evan immediately saw the urgency. If he did not act, the colony could face isolation for days. The traveler followed him to the site, her eyes scanning his work. Evan analyzed the damage, formulated a plan, and began repairs. The task was delicate. One misstep could make the problem worse. Yet he worked with confidence, improvising when standard procedures would not suffice. The traveler did not intervene, though she watched with sharp attention, noting every choice and every adjustment. Finally, after hours of careful work, the relay station came online. The hum of restored communication filled the air, and Evan leaned back, exhausted but satisfied. The traveler studied him for a long moment. "You act not only with skill but with understanding," she said softly. "You value life, you value systems, and you value outcomes beyond yourself. That is rare." Evan felt a mix of pride and humility. He realized that this was more than personal recognition. Humanity itself was being evaluated through his actions, his decisions, his ingenuity. And for the first time, he understood the weight of responsibility he carried, not only for the colony but for the reputation of his entire species. The traveler walked with him back to the colony, her steps measured, her gaze thoughtful. "You have completed the second stage," she said quietly, almost as if speaking to herself. "Adequate, but there is more to come." Evan glanced at her, curiosity and determination mingling in his eyes. "More tests?" he asked. She shook her head slightly. "Not tests, challenges. Life itself is the challenge. I only observe and learn, but I also guide, and guidance can shape outcomes if chosen wisely." As they entered the workshop, the colony lights flickering softly around them, Evan felt the weight of what lay ahead. He understood that this traveler's evaluation was far from over. The real test of human ingenuity, adaptability, and courage had only begun. Yet he also felt a quiet certainty. Humans had always faced the unknown with determination, had always adapted to circumstances beyond expectation, and had always risen to challenges others thought impossible. The morning light was pale and cool, filtering through the high windows of the colony's central hub. Evan moved through the corridors with a sense of purpose, the weight of recent days pressing on his shoulders, yet a quiet excitement lingered in his chest. Every task, every decision had become more than routine. They were part of a larger puzzle that he was only beginning to understand. The traveler had remained with the colony, observing, occasionally guiding, and each day revealed a little more of her intent. As he entered the workshop, she was already waiting. Her presence seemed to fill the room, her silver hair glowing faintly in the soft light. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept over the machinery over Evan, and over the tools laid out with meticulous order. "There is a new development," she said, her voice calm but carrying an undertone of urgency. "You will be challenged in ways that will test not only skill but strategy." Evan's heart quickened, a familiar spark of anticipation igniting. "What kind of challenge?" he asked cautiously. She did not answer directly. Instead, she handed him a small device, one he had never seen before. It was compact, smooth, and intricate, with patterns that suggested both complexity and elegance. Evan turned it over in his hands, curiosity mingling with apprehension. "This device contains information and functions that your people have not encountered," she said. "It will require adaptation, ingenuity, and decision-making under pressure. The outcome will determine the next stage of your evaluation." Evan nodded, feeling both the thrill and the responsibility of the task. He had faced challenges before, but this was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The traveler watched him silently as he began to examine the device, her expression unreadable but intensely focused. Hours passed as Evan worked carefully, dissecting the device's functions, testing its responses, and improvising solutions to problems as they arose. The technology was alien, yet it responded to his reasoning, to the careful patterns he discerned in its operation. He was aware, all the while, that every move he made was under scrutiny. The traveler's gaze followed him constantly, not with impatience but with an almost clinical interest. By late afternoon, the colony faced an unexpected alert. A small fleet of unidentified ships had been detected near the planet's orbit. Their design was unfamiliar, sleek and purposeful, suggesting they were scouting or perhaps testing the colony. Panic rippled briefly through the colony's communications, but Evan remained calm. He understood instinctively that this was the moment when ingenuity, courage, and strategy would be measured, not by force, but by thought. The traveler stood beside him, silent, observing as he quickly assessed the situation. "You will need to act," she said softly, almost as a reminder rather than a command. "Consider all variables, adapt, decide." Evan analyzed the incoming fleet. Their approach was measured but deliberate. Sensors indicated advanced weaponry and coordinated tactics, yet the fleet's numbers were small. He realized that direct confrontation would be unwise. Instead, he began devising a strategy that used the colony's strengths and compensated for its limitations. He instructed the colony engineers to reroute energy to defensive systems, to activate automated decoys, and to monitor the fleet's movements with enhanced sensors. Simultaneously, he devised a plan to create false signatures, making the colony appear larger and more fortified than it was. Each decision required improvisation and careful calculation. He relied on patterns, intuition, and the subtle clues embedded in the technology he had come to understand. The traveler watched intently, her eyes following every command, every adjustment. She did not interfere, though her presence was a constant reminder of observation. Evan felt the pressure, yet it sharpened his focus. He was not just protecting the colony, he was demonstrating the very qualities she had sought: creativity, adaptability, and calm under pressure. As the alien ships drew closer, the colony's defenses activated precisely as Evan had orchestrated. The decoys misled sensors, the energy diversions confused targeting systems, and the small automated drones moved with uncanny precision. The fleet hesitated, scanning and recalibrating, unable to find a clear target. Evan's strategy was working. The traveler spoke quietly, almost to herself. "Impressive. Humans act unpredictably yet effectively. They possess an advantage others overlook." Hours passed, and the alien fleet eventually withdrew, likely confused and unable to anticipate the human strategy. The colony remained unscathed, its people watching the skies in awe and relief. Evan exhaled deeply, the tension slowly draining from his body. The traveler turned to him, her expression finally softening, though her eyes remained sharp. "You did not merely survive the challenge," she said. "You adapted, you improvised, and you demonstrated foresight. That is the true strength of your species. It is rare in the galaxy." Evan blinked, absorbing her words. You mean humans are stronger than others think? He asked. She nodded. Yes, you are underestimated because you are often overlooked, yet you think, you adapt, you endure. That is a quality many civilizations lack. You are capable of things even you do not yet realize. The gravity of her words settled over him. For years, humans had been considered minor players in the galaxy, often dismissed as primitive or limited. Yet here, in this moment, Evan understood that their creativity and courage were unmatched in subtle but powerful ways. In the days that followed, the traveler continued her observation, introducing challenges that required coordination, moral judgment, and innovative thinking. She tested Evan not only with technology but with choices that affected the colony's well-being. Each scenario forced him to consider outcomes carefully, to weigh risks, and to act decisively. One evening, a minor crisis arose involving a damaged habitat dome. A structural panel had loosened, threatening the environmental balance within. If not addressed quickly, the temperature and oxygen levels could fluctuate dangerously. Evan assessed the situation and realized that the conventional repair approach would be too slow. He improvised a solution using available materials and a temporary energy override, stabilizing the dome until a permanent repair could be implemented. The traveler watched his actions with interest. You do not follow standard procedures blindly, she said. You adapt, you innovate, and you prioritize outcomes. That is why you succeeded where others might fail. Evan felt a quiet pride. He understood that the traveler's tests were not just about skill, but about character. Humanity's advantage lay not in raw strength or technology, but in the ability to think, to adapt, and to act under pressure. The next challenge came unexpectedly. A small environmental anomaly, a sudden storm unlike any recorded in the colony's history, swept across the region. Power grids fluctuated, automated systems faltered, and minor damage appeared throughout the settlement. Panic began to rise among the colonists, but Evan moved calmly, directing repairs, guiding people to safety, and improvising solutions where standard protocols failed. The traveler followed him as he moved through the colony, observing his choices and the way he coordinated the response. She noted his ability to remain composed, to anticipate problems, and to inspire confidence in others. It was one thing to solve mechanical problems. It was another to lead people through uncertainty and danger with clarity and calm. When the storm finally passed, the colony had suffered minor damage but no serious casualties. The traveler's eyes reflected approval, though her expression remained reserved. You possess qualities that even I did not fully anticipate, she said. Humans combine intelligence, adaptability, and moral courage in ways that are remarkable. Evan felt a mixture of relief and determination. He realized that every challenge the traveler had presented was a step in a larger process, a careful evaluation of what humans could achieve when confronted with the unknown. And he understood that humanity's true strength was now visible, not just to him, but to an observer from a distant and advanced civilization. Over the following weeks, Evan and the traveler worked together, facing challenges that tested technology, strategy, and ethical judgment. Each success reinforced the traveler's growing recognition of human potential. She introduced problems that required creative problem-solving, improvisation, and the ability to make quick decisions under pressure. Evan met each one with determination, confidence, and ingenuity. By the end of this period, the traveler had gathered enough observations to make a preliminary conclusion. One evening, as the colony settled under the stars, she spoke quietly to Evan. You have demonstrated not only skill, but judgment, creativity, and courage. You have shown me that humanity possesses an advantage that is often overlooked, a combination of mind, heart, and adaptability. That advantage cannot be replicated easily. Evan looked at her, a mixture of awe and understanding in his eyes. So humans are capable of more than we thought? He asked. She nodded, her gaze steady. Yes, and that capability will be tested further. The universe is vast, filled with challenges that will require more than technology. It will require the qualities you have demonstrated, the ingenuity, the courage, the adaptability. Those are your true strengths. For the first time, Evan felt the full weight of the traveler's purpose. She had not come merely to seek help or repair a ship. She had come to evaluate humanity, to understand its potential, and to observe the qualities that made humans unique in the galaxy. And he, through his actions, had become the embodiment of that potential. The stars above the colony shone with quiet brilliance, reflecting the possibilities that lay beyond. Evan felt a renewed sense of purpose. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and now, under the careful observation of this mysterious traveler, its true strengths were being revealed. The next stage, he knew, would challenge him and the colony in ways he could not yet imagine. But he also knew that humanity's ingenuity and courage were powerful tools, tools that would allow them not only to survive, but to thrive in the face of the unknown. And in that realization, Evan felt a quiet confidence. Whatever came next, humans would meet it with the very qualities that had always set them apart: resourcefulness, determination, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The traveler looked at him one last time that evening, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "You are ready for what comes next," she said softly, "and humanity is ready as well." Evan nodded, his mind racing with possibilities. The real challenges were still ahead, but for the first time, he felt that humanity was not merely reacting to the universe. It was prepared to shape it. And that thought, more than anything, filled him with determination. The sky above the colony was filled with an eerie, shifting light. Sensors had detected the alien fleet again, this time larger, more organized, and undeniably hostile in their intent. Their sleek ships hung in the atmosphere like predators circling prey, scanning for weaknesses, probing for vulnerabilities. The colonists moved with a mixture of fear and determination, their faces pale but resolute as they prepared for what could be the most dangerous moment in the planet's history. Evan stood on the observation platform, overlooking the entire settlement. His heart pounded, but his mind was sharp. The traveler stood beside him, silent and still, her eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. She had not intervened yet, choosing instead to allow humanity to face the challenge on its own. Every lesson, every test had led to this moment. "You will lead them," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Your choices will determine whether your people survive. Adapt, think, and act. That is the measure of your species." Evan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He looked at the colony's defenses: energy shields, automated turrets, sensor arrays, and a handful of small drones. It was an impressive setup for a remote settlement, but against a superior force it was fragile. And yet he felt a surge of confidence. He had faced challenges before: technological problems, environmental crises, and moral dilemmas. But this was the first time all his skills, instincts, and creativity would be tested together. He began issuing commands immediately, his voice steady and clear over the comms. Engineers and technicians moved to reroute energy, adjusting shields and turrets, while scouts monitored the alien fleet's movements. Evan calculated the fleet's approach patterns, predicting their likely strategies based on speed, formation, and sensor behavior. It was like a complex game of chess, where every move had consequences and hesitation could be fatal. The traveler watched him carefully, noting the way he organized, adapted, and remained calm under pressure. She had seen many civilizations, many commanders, but she had not often observed such clarity combined with ingenuity. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but in ways that turned uncertainty into advantage. Evan devised a plan that relied not on brute force, but on clever use of the colony's resources. Drones were sent out to create false targets, decoys that would confuse the alien sensors. Automated turrets were programmed with adaptive algorithms, capable of adjusting to shifting attack patterns. Energy fields were fluctuated rhythmically, creating the illusion of instability to draw the fleet's attention away from the colony's true defensive points. As the alien ships advanced, the strategy began to work. Their sensors flickered, their targeting systems misread the positions of the colony's installations, and confusion spread through their ranks. Evan's heart raced, not with fear but with exhilaration. This was more than survival. It was proof that careful thought, creativity, and human ingenuity could overcome even the most daunting challenges. The traveler's voice broke his focus. "They are adapting. You must anticipate their adaptations or your advantage will disappear." Evan took a deep breath and adjusted the plan. He had predicted their initial response, but now he needed to think several steps ahead. He ordered the drones to reposition, creating overlapping patterns that would obscure the colony's true locations. Turrets were recalibrated to respond dynamically to rapid changes, and energy fields were altered to produce unpredictable fluctuations. Each adjustment was a delicate balance, requiring precision and foresight. The alien fleet hesitated again, scanning, analyzing, and recalibrating. They had expected resistance, perhaps even skill, but they had not anticipated the level of adaptability they faced. The colony, small and underestimated, moved with intelligence and creativity that the attackers could not predict. Evan realized that this was the moment when humanity's true advantage revealed itself. It was not strength, speed, or technology alone. It was ingenuity, quick thinking, and the courage to act decisively under pressure. While other species relied on rigid procedures, humans adapted, improvised, and turned unpredictability into power. Hours passed as the battle of wits continued. The alien ships attempted to outmaneuver the defenses, but Evan anticipated their moves, adjusting the colony's systems with precision. He coordinated teams of engineers, drone operators, and technicians, creating a fluid network of responses that seemed almost instinctual. At one point, a smaller strike team from the alien fleet broke formation, attempting a direct approach toward the colony's core systems. Evan recognized the danger immediately. A direct attack could compromise critical energy nodes and communication arrays. He acted quickly, directing drones to intercept, energy fields to redirect, and turrets to target with careful calculation. The strike team was repelled without significant damage, its approach thwarted by human ingenuity rather than sheer firepower. The traveler watched silently, impressed. "This is why humans endure," she said softly. "Not because they are the strongest, but because they are clever, adaptable, and unyielding." Evan felt a surge of pride, tempered by the knowledge that the battle was not yet over. The fleet was persistent, and their intelligence suggested they would adjust to the colony's strategies. He knew that every advantage would need to be maintained, every move calculated with care. As the alien fleet continued to probe and test, Evan introduced subtle countermeasures. Sensor jammers created false signals, while energy surges simulated vulnerabilities. Drones were sent on deceptive patrols, drawing the enemy into traps designed to slow their advance. Each maneuver required quick thinking, coordination, and trust in the people around him. The colonists, though nervous, followed his lead. Their confidence grew as they saw their strategy succeed. The traveler observed not only Evan but the human spirit in action, the willingness to act, to adapt, and to support one another under pressure. She made mental notes, understanding that these qualities, combined with ingenuity, were what made humanity exceptional. By evening, the alien fleet, frustrated and unable to penetrate the colony's defenses, began to retreat. Their formations broke down, their sensors confused, and their strategy had been entirely outmatched by human adaptability. Evan watched them leave, a quiet smile of relief and triumph crossing his face. The colony had survived unscathed through intellect, planning, and courage. The traveler stepped forward, her eyes reflecting a rare sense of admiration. "You have proven what I hoped to see," she said. "Humans are not merely capable of survival. You are capable of turning limitations into advantages, of using intellect and creativity to overcome forces far beyond your immediate strength. This is a rare quality." Evan nodded, still catching his breath. "It wasn't just me," he said. "Everyone worked together, we adapted, we improvised, that's how we survived." She inclined her head slightly, acknowledging his humility and insight. "Yes. Cooperation, ingenuity, and courage are your greatest weapons. Others may underestimate you, but those who do will learn the consequences." As the colony settled into a cautious calm, Evan walked through the workshops, observation decks, and energy hubs, checking systems and ensuring that all was secure. The colonists were exhausted but relieved, their respect for one another and for human capability deepened by the ordeal. The traveler moved beside him, silent, her presence a constant reminder of the wider galaxy beyond their isolated planet. Evan realized that this confrontation had changed everything. Humanity had proven its advantage, not through sheer force, but through adaptability, strategy, and courage. The universe, vast and unpredictable, would present many challenges, and he now understood that these qualities were what would allow humans to meet them successfully. Night fell, and the stars shimmered above the colony. The alien fleet had vanished beyond the horizon, leaving only the quiet hum of machinery and the occasional chatter of relieved colonists. Evan sat on the edge of the landing pad, gazing at the sky, reflecting on the day's events. The traveler stood nearby, watching him, her expression unreadable yet thoughtful. "You have completed the confrontation," she said. "You have not only survived but excelled. Your people's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability have been demonstrated beyond doubt. This is the proof of what I have sought." Evan felt a quiet pride. He had faced a test unlike any other, and humanity had prevailed, not through technology alone, nor through brute force, but through qualities that were uniquely human. Creativity, cooperation, and the courage to act decisively had turned an impossible situation into a triumph. The traveler turned her gaze toward the distant stars, considering the galaxy beyond. "Others will test you, challenge you, and underestimate you," she said softly. "But you now understand the advantage your species holds. That understanding will be critical in the trials to come." Evan looked at her, a mixture of awe and determination in his eyes. "We'll be ready," he said. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." She nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "Yes, together, and that unity combined with ingenuity will make humans a force to be reckoned with." As the night deepened, the colony rested, recovering from the day's trials. Evan remained at the edge of the landing pad, gazing at the sky and imagining the vast universe beyond. For the first time, he truly understood humanity's place, not as insignificant observers, but as clever, adaptable, and courageous beings capable of meeting the unknown with confidence. The traveler's presence was a constant reminder that the universe was larger and stranger than they had ever imagined, but she had also revealed a profound truth. Humanity's greatest advantage was not technology, not strength, but the combination of mind, heart, and determination. And in that understanding, Evan felt a sense of purpose that extended beyond the colony, beyond survival, and beyond the immediate challenges of the day. Humanity had faced its first true test under the gaze of the traveler, and it had emerged not only intact but triumphant. The lessons learned, the strategies devised, and the courage demonstrated would carry them forward into the unknown, ready for whatever the galaxy had in store. The stars above shimmered, distant, and endless, reflecting the possibilities ahead. Evan understood that this confrontation was only the beginning, that the real challenges were still to come. But he also knew that humanity had proven its strength, its ingenuity, and its courage, and that knowledge would shape every choice, every action, and every step into the wider universe. The traveler turned her gaze toward him one last time that night, her expression calm and approving. "You have done well, Evan," she said softly. "And humanity has done well. The universe will take notice. This is only the beginning." Evan nodded, a quiet determination settling in his chest. Whatever awaited beyond the stars, he knew that humanity, guided by ingenuity, courage, and unity, would face it, and they would not only survive, they would excel. The dawn was soft and golden over the colony, spilling across the buildings and fields, painting them with light and warmth. The air was quiet, but the hum of restored machinery reminded everyone that life had not paused. The previous confrontation with the alien fleet had left the colonists both relieved and alert. They had survived, yes, but they had also learned something profound, that they were capable of far more than they had ever realized. Evan moved through the central hub, checking systems and coordinating repairs with quiet efficiency. The colony had been spared major damage, but there were still small malfunctions to correct, sensors to recalibrate, and power grids to balance. Yet beneath the practical work there was a different feeling, one of pride, confidence, and unity. The colonists had faced the unknown and emerged triumphant, guided not by advanced weaponry or sheer force, but by ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. The traveler stood beside him, her silver hair catching the morning light, her gaze scanning the settlement. She had observed every choice, every action, and every moment of human decision-making. Now, after the events of the last days, she seemed almost serene, as if the purpose of her journey had been fulfilled. "You have done well," she said softly. Her voice carried authority, but also a quiet warmth, a subtle acknowledgement of the human spirit she had witnessed. "Not only you, Evan, but all of your people have demonstrated what I hoped to see. Adaptability, intelligence, courage, and unity. These are qualities that define your species." Evan felt a mixture of pride and humility. "We just did what we had to do," he said quietly. We faced the problems and we found solutions. That's all any of us know how to do. She shook her head, her expression calm but thoughtful. No, what you and your people have done is more than problem-solving. You have shown something that others often overlook. Humanity does not merely react to circumstances. You adapt, innovate, and make choices that shape outcomes. That is a power many civilizations do not understand, and one that few possess. Evan nodded, understanding the weight of her words. Humanity had always been underestimated in the galaxy. Outsiders often judged them by appearances, by the size of their fleets or the speed of their technology. But the truth, he realized, was different. Humans had a resilience, a cleverness, and a moral strength that allowed them to succeed against forces that seemed impossible. Over the following days, the colony settled into a new rhythm. Systems were repaired, energy grids stabilized, and minor damages were corrected. The colonists worked together, their confidence strengthened by the trials they had faced. They moved with precision, understanding, and efficiency, yet there was also a newfound pride in their abilities, a quiet recognition that they were capable of extraordinary things. The traveler remained with them, observing, guiding subtly when necessary, but never imposing. She asked questions about human society, about their approach to challenges, about the ways they worked together and thought creatively. Evan answered her honestly, sharing the principles that guided the colony, the lessons learned from years of survival, and the ingenuity required to thrive on a remote, isolated planet. You value life, not only your own but others, she noted. You consider consequences beyond immediate gain. That is remarkable. It is rare for any species to combine intelligence, empathy, and adaptability so consistently. Evan smiled faintly. We have to. On this planet, mistakes can be fatal and nothing lasts long without care. If we don't look out for one another, we won't survive. She inclined her head. Exactly. That is the strength I sought to understand. Your people's potential lies not in your technology alone, but in your choices, your resilience, and your capacity to learn and adapt. As the days turned into weeks, she began to prepare for departure. Her ship, once stranded and in need of repair, now gleamed under the morning sun, restored to full functionality. Evan had assisted with the final calibrations, ensuring the vessel was ready for interstellar travel. The colonists gathered, curious and respectful, as the traveler prepared to leave. Before boarding, she addressed them all. You have demonstrated qualities that will be remembered, not only by me, but by any who observe your species in the future. You have shown that humans are more than they appear. You are resourceful, courageous, and adaptable. You are capable of shaping your destiny and influencing events far beyond this world. The colonists listened in awe, their eyes reflecting pride and a newfound sense of importance. They had faced challenges, had made decisions under pressure, and had proven their ingenuity. The traveler's acknowledgement was not just for Evan, but for every human who had worked, struggled, and persevered. Turning to Evan, she spoke privately. You have been exemplary. Your choices, your leadership, and your courage have been observed in detail. You have embodied what it means to be human at your best. That is rare in the galaxy. Remember this, the universe will continue to test your species, but the qualities you have displayed will guide you through any trial. Evan felt the weight of responsibility settle upon him once more, but it was different now. It was not fear or doubt, it was purpose. Humanity had survived not through luck, but through its unique strengths. And now, with the traveler's acknowledgement, Evan understood that these strengths were recognized, respected, and capable of influencing the wider galaxy. As the traveler boarded her ship, she paused briefly. Her eyes met Evan's, and for a moment there was understanding, recognition, and quiet approval. I will return, she said simply. When the time is right, humanity will play a role far greater than any of you imagine. Be ready, keep learning, keep adapting. That is your true power. With that, the vessel lifted, gliding smoothly above the colony before disappearing into the vastness of space. The colonists watched in silence, a mixture of wonder and inspiration in their hearts. The sky seemed wider, the stars brighter, and the future filled with possibilities they had not dared imagine before. Evan remained on the observation platform, looking at the empty sky where the traveler's ship had vanished. He felt a quiet determination. Humanity had been tested, and it had excelled. They had survived impossible odds not because of strength alone, but because of ingenuity, courage, and the ability to act decisively under pressure. In the days that followed, the colony flourished in ways they had not before. Systems were optimized, energy resources managed more efficiently, and minor innovations implemented during the travelers' visit were refined into standard practices. The colonists moved with confidence, inspired by the knowledge that their capabilities had been observed, evaluated, and respected by an advanced civilization. Evan often walked through the colony at night, reflecting on what had transpired. He thought of the challenges, the unexpected crises, and the moments of quick thinking that had made the difference. He understood that the travelers' tests had been more than personal. They had been a window into the potential of humanity itself. Every choice, every act of ingenuity, every moment of courage had contributed to a greater understanding of what humans could achieve. The realization settled in his mind. Humanity's place in the galaxy was not defined by fleets or technology alone, but by qualities that could not be measured on a scanner: creativity, adaptability, resilience, and the courage to act when it mattered most. These were the traits that would allow them to face any challenge, explore the stars, and rise above expectations. Months passed, and the colony continued to thrive. Communication systems improved, energy grids became more efficient, and the community grew closer, bonded by shared experiences and newfound confidence. Evan became a central figure in guiding the colony, respected for his skill, judgment, and leadership. Yet he never forgot the lessons learned from the traveler, that humanity's greatest strength was in its choices, its adaptability, and its courage under pressure. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Evan stood alone at the edge of the landing pad, gazing at the stars. The memory of the traveler's words lingered: "Keep learning, keep adapting." That is your true power. He understood now that humanity had been given an opportunity to prove itself, and it had done so with excellence. The galaxy was vast and full of unknowns, but Evan felt no fear. Humanity had been tested, evaluated, and found capable. They had shown that even in the face of challenges far beyond their immediate strength, they could succeed through ingenuity, cooperation, and courage. And that knowledge, more than any technology or weapon, was what would allow them to shape their destiny. As night fell, the stars twinkled like distant promises, each one a challenge, a possibility, a mystery waiting to be met. Evan smiled faintly, a quiet sense of pride and determination filling his chest. The traveler's journey had revealed much, but it had also set a path for humanity to rise, to explore, and to be recognized across the stars for what they truly were. And in that moment, Evan knew the truth that the traveler had understood all along. Humanity's place in the universe was not as followers, observers, or underdogs. They were innovators, problem solvers, and pioneers. They were clever, courageous, and adaptable in ways that no other species could easily replicate. They were capable of greatness, and the galaxy had only begun to see it. With that thought, Evan turned back toward the colony, toward the people who had fought, learned, and adapted beside him. Together, they had faced the unknown and had proven their worth. And together, they would continue to rise, ready for every challenge that lay beyond the stars. The traveler's ship had vanished, but her lessons remained. Humanity had been tested and had triumphed, not through weapons or power alone, but through qualities that defined them: ingenuity, courage, and the unwavering drive to adapt and succeed. And as Evan looked at the sky, he knew that this was only the beginning. The universe awaited, vast and unpredictable, but humanity was ready. And in that readiness, there was hope, promise, and the certainty that the galaxy had never truly understood the force it would soon encounter.